Hello and welcome into my studio. My name is Wendy Anderson and we're going to be painting this little fairy forest home scene. So you can embellish it however you want, but I really want you to paint along. Don't just watch. Make sure you grab your paintbrushes. I'm always using like an 8x10 either wrapped or panel canvas. So something, it's not too big, but you could use any rectangle. And then we have a 1 inch flat, ½ inch flat, and a small round detail brush. You're only using your primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. And I'm using Liquitex Basics. And then I also add black and white as well. So red, yellow, blue, primary colors, black and white. So easy. 3 brushes. You can do it. All right, let's paint. All right, let's get started. We're going to have our cup of water. And I'm going to take my 1 inch flat brush and put it in the water first. Make sure you have your primary colors plus your black and white on your palette. I'm using an 8x10 wrapped canvas. And then you want to have a couple other brushes handy, like a 1/2 inch flat and a small round brush. This is a number 4 round. So anything like that, have a towel or a paper towel ready. I'm going to, again, the 1 inch flat, the large square brush is going to be first. And I'm just going to do a little bit of side to side brush strokes, like little X strokes. And you can also practice just scrubbing the corner. Just like push the brush and scrub. You should hear it like make a little kind of sound as you're scrubbing. So you can play with either this side to side brush stroke or a little scrub. I'm just gonna wing it today and do a fun little whimsical kind of forest thing. And I want to make it like kind of ethereal. So we're gonna take a little bit of yellow and a lot of blue to create a turquoise color. And I'm going to start at the bottom with that turquoise. So it's kind of a blue green or a darker shade of green. So heavy on the blue. You can even just dip your brush in the pure blue and just sweep it on the bottom, little cat paws. Maybe they go up a little higher on the sides. I always like doing that for these kinds of paintings. And then we're going to add more white as we go up. So maybe I add a little more white. Maybe I scrub it up here like that. And I just want to get this color in. So the color at the top is going to be lighter than the color at the bottom by just adding more white, but I still have the blue and a little bit of yellow on there. I'm just going to take that all the way up. Again, I could do a little X stroke. Just do it, get it on there however feels fun for you. So if you start getting frustrated, like it's going too slow and you want it to go quicker, then move quicker. Sometimes like our impulses when we're creating are really going to serve you a lot better. It's all about riding the vibe and doing what feels fun for you. So don't hesitate to try different things. Now, once I get that base coat on, notice how that was so quick and easy to do, right? It's not a big deal. You shouldn't be laboring over that too much. We want to make sure to let it dry a bit because we're going to layer some different colors over. So a couple ways for that to happen is you could simply wait, take a break, or you can use a hair dryer to make it go a little quicker. So I'm going to use a hair dryer just to make it go a little quicker. All right, so next we're going to just begin layering some different elements. So we have what's like our ground and then our sky. I'm going to do some big trees. So I want to keep using that big brush, but I want it to be clean and dry because we're going to do some different colors. And I'm going to make like a sort of a dark brown. So I want a lot of black, but to soften it, you're going to use yellow and red as well. And that's going to create a brown for you. But we do want a lot of black so that it stays nice and dark. And then I'm going to add trees on either side of the canvas. So sometimes it's fun to almost frame your painting with trees. So for example, I can come in, maybe I don't go all the way down on the right, but I can just pull it here. I can pull a tree that comes here. All right, and then maybe back here I have one that goes up a little higher. So that means it doesn't come down as far. So see how one comes down a little further and one doesn't go as far. So that's kind of fun to play with. And then you can just pull down like this, and then I can make it as thick or thin as I want. But typically with these types of trees, you want them to be a little thicker at the base and then a little thinner at the top. You can always dip the brush in the water to make your paint a little more fluid if you need to. A lot of times I have people kind of ask, like, how do you get your paint kind of so flowy? I add a lot of water to it. Like, you can either do that in advance or you can do it as you go by just dipping your brush in your water just a little bit at the tip and then mixing it into whatever color you're using until it feels a little more silky, and then work with it that way and see how it feels. I'm gonna make this one a little thicker. And then you can use the edge of the brush to have some branches. So push a little harder at first and then release pressure to make it get a little thinner. So maybe I have a branch going like that. Maybe this tree has a couple of branches coming out on the top or the side, however you want to do it. Okay, so now I have a couple of these brown trees. Then you can move into the medium square brush, and maybe we could get some other different background trees that are more faint. So a lot of times those background trees look pretty, in my opinion, as like a soft lavender. So maybe I mix a little bit of red and blue together and then add some white. And we can go ahead and add some of these distant trees that are smaller, maybe a little different. So maybe they're still a little thicker at the base, but then you pull off into these different little patterns. I like doing the Y shape pattern for my trees. So that means it will be like a big Y and then little Ys coming off of the bigger Y. And the branches are usually moving thicker to thinner. So you have a thicker to thinner pattern with the Y shape. And try not to, it just takes practice too to get good at doing it quickly. And again, a little bit of water mixed in can help it flow a little bit better. And then they can cross each other too. You don't have to make them like stay in their lane. It's a forest. Things are kind of intertwined. Maybe have some like just little kind of more faint, less detailed little motions in the background where maybe even if you add a little more white to it and make them a little thinner, they'll look even further away or just softer in the whole scene. And if you don't like how dark some of yours got, you can just take that lighter shade and paint a little bit over it. Sometimes it looks pretty if there's multiple shades on there anyway. So sometimes I'll just do that. I'll add a little extra of a light shade to soften some of these background trees so they don't get too overpowering, because you don't want it to be the focal point. It's just part of it. It's not the focal. Now, another way to kind of tie everything together is to add some more grass. But before we do that, I'm going to put some shapes of little mushrooms and stuff. And we can do that with the round brush. So a mushroom is pretty easy to make a shape for. I'm going to start with the mushroom color, which is going to be kind of a peachy brown color. So you can use the red and the yellow with a touch of black or a touch of brown. Make like a mushroomy color. Maybe it's a little pinkish. It's almost like peachy and pretty light. Like that. And then what I can do is I can be like, oh, like I want a little mushroom, maybe like right here. So I'm going to paint a line, and then you just put a little rainbow top on it like that. And then you make another not so intense rainbow shape to close off the bottom of that shape. And then you just go ahead and paint in the bottom like that. And that's just your base shape. I'm not going to color in the top of it because we'll do different colors, but I can do a few of those. So say I have my stem, put a little rainbow on it, put another little rainbow. Maybe you have a couple. Some can be big, some can be small. You have different shapes. Maybe I do another like really big one right here, bigger. Maybe I even have one like right here. I'm going to start with the top of it. A lot of painting is just kind of mapping out where you want things and then coloring it in. So that's the fun of it. So I'm just making little outline shapes. I know they look weird right now, but it'll come together when we actually paint it in. I'm going to clean the brush. And then one of the other fun things we can do is we can add the color to the top. So I'm going to make the mushrooms kind of a pink color because that's just what I want to do, but you can make them whatever color you want. They could be purple, they could be just more of a red. But I'm doing a like it could almost be like a peachy pink too. That could look pretty. But I just want to color the top of them with this color. Maybe these back ones are more like orangey, so I can add a little more yellow to the pink to make it more like an orange color. You really, really just want you to play and do it feels fun. So now while the mushrooms dry, we can kind of add some more fun stuff here. Like maybe we have like a little door in one of the trees. So let's go ahead and put that in this far away tree right here, just to make it more mysterious, like it's far off. And we'll make the door blue. So I'm going to use blue and white. Don't go too light at first, but you want a little bit of white in there to make it more opaque. And then we're going to just put a little arc. Maybe a little bit more white. Let's see. There we go. I'm just putting it on top of this mushroom here so it's kind of looks like it's in the distance. So now we have like a little house right there. Maybe we have another one here, but maybe this is just a little circle door. Maybe it's a little village. And then we want these things, remember, we want these things to dry. I want to add a little more grass to the bottom. So we can do the combination of yellow and blue for some more green colors. And this is fun because we can take this and flick up, like little tiny flicks that pull up in the bottom. Now it can have more blue to make it like a darker shade. So maybe I want some more blue parts down here and they can kind of come around the mushroom to kind of tuck them in. You can go around the roots of the tree to tuck that in. And maybe you add a little more yellow. And even a touch of white to lighten your shade. And then you can keep layering. Notice I can roll the brush. So if you get a ton of paint in your brush, you got to roll out the extra paint. Just try to get the tip rolled on there. Give you a little more precision. You can go in and do some more. So if you're having trouble with your brush, try to reshape it by doing things like rolling it or cleaning it and see what happens. And again, adding a little water could help with the fluidity. Not too much, but a little bit. So I'm going to clean the brush. And while the mushrooms and all that stuff dry, I'm going to put more details on the tree. I'm going to take some black on the brush. I'm just using the small round brush. And I want my shadows to fall on the outside of the trees. So the trees will be darker, like this tree will be darker on the left than it is on the right. So I'm going to put some dark streaks on the left side. And I could also go to the left side or just sort of almost even just outlining the little door. So see, I can put a little outline around it and it makes it a little darker. Same thing with this little door. Maybe there's little stairs going right here, so we can put some little lines going on the side of the tree like that. And then we'll make it look like stairs eventually with highlights and stuff. Trust the process. I always got to tell myself that. We're just going up, dark on the right on this tree on the right. So we're just going poop. Shadows fall on the outside. And then you can do some highlights, which would just look like more yellow and red and maybe even a little bit of white. So you're going back into that brown color. And then that could go on the other side. So streak that in. And the brighter you go with more white and stuff mixed into the brown, the more it's really going to pop. So, be careful. I'm going to go on top of those little lines and add a little of that light brown. So we have this little stairway kind of developing over here on the side. Same thing on this side. See how that, I don't know, it just looks really fun to do that. Just streaks. That's what helps make it look kind of like tree bark, like the texture of the tree. I love doing these things. And it's just really relaxing. And you can always paint a little more on the highlight on the stairs. Now those trees look a little more three-dimensional, right? So it's helpful. Now the mushroom's looking to get this similar treatment. So you might want to like darker shade for the mushrooms. You can even use purple as a shadow color, which I like doing for the mushrooms. It makes it look kind of psychedelic. So if I just mix some red and blue, this gives me a fun shadow color. You can even add a little bit of yellow into that, the purple, to make it look kind of earthy. Not too much though. And if you want it softened, add a little bit of white. So again, you're mostly purple. A touch of yellow is going to make it look more earthy. And then a touch of white will make it look a little lighter. But this could be a shadow color for the mushrooms. Just go on the right side of the mushroom and take the stem up to the underside of the mushroom. And then you can put a little shadow on the underside and kind of outline it. And you can make little, just put some shadow under there, you know, get some color. These are small though, so I'm not going to do too much detail. But you do want to focus on getting the shadow on the right side on these ones right here. And then the other ones are going to go the other side. And if you want to soften it a little bit, just add a little more white to that color and you can kind of blend out the shadow a little bit. Sometimes I do that just if I got the line too thick, or just to add another shade, it could look kind of cool. So again, you're just adding more white to your mushroom shadow color, which is purple, so red and blue. Add a smidge of yellow and a smidge of white, and that's going to give you a fun mushroom color. Purple is actually one of my favorite shadow colors, and you can make the purple look various ways. So we're just cleaning our brush between our colors, so make sure you keep doing that. And I'm going to add some shading to the mushrooms themselves. So the mushrooms, like these orange ones, have a little bit of a shadow color, just add a little more red to your orange and put that on the right side of the mushroom. So you could take these shadows and highlights really far, but I usually keep it pretty simple. Now for the pink, you just want to make a darker shade of pink. So I'm just going to move into more of a red with a touch of white. So it should look like a darker shade of pink than what we have there. And then we're going to put a little shadow on the shadow side. Maybe a little bit on the underside. Not too crazy. So remember, the shadow side is the side that's away from the center. So on the little mushrooms that are on the right are going to have their shadow on the right side. And maybe a little bit just on the lip here, or the little edge. And then the mushrooms on the left are going to go on the left side. And then you can pull into more of a medium pink. So just add more white to match the mushroom a bit. And then you can blend out the shadow just a little to make sure it doesn't look too crazy if you want. I'm going to leave the orange ones as is because they're so far away. But see how much that brings it to life. Then you can add even more white to it, almost like more white than even your first shade, and give it a highlight on the side that's closest to the light. So see how that pops out a little bit more. You can just leave like a little outline, or you can pull it in a little bit more towards the center of the shape. It's up to you. But if you need to soften it, come back into more red. Again, more white is just on the very outer edge to really make it shine. So don't hesitate to really pop in the really bright pink there. And then again, it's so easy to soften it. So I always encourage you to be brave and just put it in there, even if you're like, oh, that may be too much. You know, sometimes it is too much, but that's okay because you can go back and forth with your colors a little bit. Now for the orange, you can come in with some of that, like add more yellow to your orange and maybe a little white to get a highlight color for your orange ones. So again, more yellow and white is going to give you a highlight color for your orange ones. There you go. So we're just going to do this to everything. Then we got our doors. So the doors, you want a darker shade of blue. So maybe I just have pure blue and maybe even just use a little bit of black mixed into it or something for your shadow blue. Not too much. Or you could even add just a little bit of red to your blue to get a shadow blue. I'm going to do mostly blue with a bit of black for mine. And then again, my door is going to be a little more dark on the outer right edge. And then you can put some vertical brush strokes to create, and we're going to make it look a little bit like wood maybe. Same thing on this one towards the far left, and then do some little vertical pulls. And then maybe we come in with some lighter blue. So blue with more white. Remember, clean your brush in between. And then you come in with some vertical little lines in between. And again, that ends up looking kind of like a little wood door. So fun. Now in this like scene here, you can always come in with some white, or maybe mostly white with a tiny bit of blue. So I'm just like, oh, it's like a lot of white. And you can be right in the middle, and you can kind of pull some highlights just through the forest a bit and like wiggle your brush to give it like a little bit of a glow on the ground. You can put like little dots in the sky. Maybe this like with the either white or like a light blue. So see, I can put some dots like floating around. And this will look like maybe they're like forest fireflies or something. This kind of stands out more in a nighttime scene, but I'm not necessarily making this look like nighttime. And then maybe you have like some little swirling orbs going around the trees. So sometimes it's fun to like make a little trail of dots that goes around the tree. And then to make them look more glowy, you can take your finger to one of them and smudge it out. Just like that. I did it to this one too. So any of them that you maybe feel like need to, maybe they've got messed up or something and you want to just do that, you can smudge them out. Smudge them out so that they look fuzzy. And then reapply another dot right in the middle and on top of it. And it makes it look like it's glowing. So this is a fun technique, and you can do it. Again, it stands out a little more when you're doing it, the darker the background is where you're doing it. So for example, if I put one like right here on this dark part of the tree, just put a little tiny dab and then smudge it and then add another little thing, you're going to get this little glow. It's really cool. So maybe you do that, maybe not. It's really just, I mean, I always tell people just do what like feels fun for you here. You can add these things or you can do something else. So I'm just trailing it up. So it looks like maybe there's a little trail of fairy dust or something going over there. And I could do some just around here. You can have some more floating around here. Maybe it's not like trailing, but it's there. And again, smudge out whichever ones you want it to look like it's glowing. And I always tell people too, when you're doing these kinds of little dots and things, it's best to make sure that you have different sizes. So you could have some that are a little bigger, some that are really tiny. And the more variety you have there, the more interesting it's going to look. So try to get some variety. We have like this little path. I'm going to make that like a little bit more maybe green or something. I'm going to do like a light green with that actually. Just pull it through here. The white kind of felt a little too bright, but see how a light color can help make a path. And then again, maybe I add a little bit more green grass pulling up. It could be like a light shade, or you can go back into your dark shades. Just add some fun stuff. And again, maybe I go back to my dark shade of green and pull some darker shades again. Little grass pulling around. You can even have some little kind of little wiggly brush strokes that kind of pull up a little higher. I don't know, sometimes I don't have a plan. Like today, it's like kind of loose. I have an idea, but I'm just kind of rolling with it. And I don't want to overdo it though, because like I like to keep them short and sweet. So a couple of things we can do to wrap it up is to put some little dots on the mushrooms. So we can take our white and paint little dots. And to keep with like the shadow, maybe the dots on the shadow side of your mushroom don't get as bright. So you can keep them a little darker by not adding so much white, or by even using like a pink color or something. You don't have to, it's just an idea. I always say the more detail you put into it, the more interesting it's going to look, the more depth it's going to have, but also just do what feels fun for you. So for example, like the dots on the shadow side of the mushroom can be painted with like more of a pink that's a lighter shade than the base color, but not as light as the white. So I'm kind of just painting over it just a little bit to make those ones a little bit darker on the side. It just adds to the idea of the shadow and the highlight. And then maybe you even do some like pink or red dots for the orange mushrooms. So you can just do little tiny speckly dots on those ones if you want, or you can just leave them orange. It's up to you. Maybe you put a little door handle on your doors so I can go in and be like, all right, we're gonna put a little door handle right there. And we'll do one right here. Just a little dot of black. Maybe I do a little bit more for the stairs here if I want a little more shadow, or you can add more shadow to the tree if you want to. And you can even, say you got like maybe I want to get some more gangly little branches in there with the black. And this is just going to stand out as like the dark branch. It's like a little more interesting, a little more moody, and I can wiggle it around a bit more and make it look a little more gnarled. So however you really want to, I always can go on and on with these things. You have like little ones coming out. You really want to add so it doesn't look all naked. So in the end, my favorite thing to do is add dark and light. So maybe, again, maybe the trees need more dark roots or branches or shadows or doorknobs or whatever. And then maybe your mushrooms or any of these other things need more little fairy dots or bright spots or anything like that. It's all about highlights and shadows and little interesting details added. I'm just going to clean the brush, maybe pop in a few more highlights. So I'm going to get some white. Again, maybe I put a little bit of like little highlights on our little path right here, little grass path. You can put some little white highlights towards the top of those stairs. Each little step gets a little pop of white. You can do some more little white highlights vertically on the door. You can put a little dab of white towards the top of your handle as a highlight, the door handle. And you can also add another coat of white to the spots on the mushroom that are to the far highlight side. So maybe just add it to a few of them, the ones that are the farthest over, to make them look a little brighter if need be. Who knows? Maybe you add some more little dots, like little fairy dust. Maybe I have some of these little glowing orbs down here in the grass, like little fireflies. Or maybe they're fairies. Like Tinkerbell kind of turns into a little light. So, you know, sometimes those little glowing things could be the actual fairies that live in this little fairy forest scene. But I'm gonna let it go. It's just like an idea to say like, oh, you know, you can play around with it. You can embellish it as much as you want. You can put things in there. But I'm gonna call it done and say, hey, that's a good little base, little home for a fairy. Remember to leave a comment. Let me know what other fun stuff you like to paint. And I hope you painted along. If you didn't, you know, do it. Get in there, paint with me. That's where all the magic happens, is when you actually put the paint to the canvas and you're having this very relaxing experience because you're not thinking, you're just, it's almost like a meditation. So that's why I love to spread the joy of painting. So again, I hope you had fun. Let me know what else you want to paint and have a beautiful rest of your day. Thanks for watching. Bye.